standby. How am I going to do this? Hopefully this will reach. Seems like it will. Perfect. I happen to get the last study room in the hall, so I have the whiteboard instead of a window into the next room. I'm just going to tweet out that I'm live because I want people to be here for this. If I can copy and close. Okay, just bear with me 1 second, guys. Just going to. I can't spell today. Why am I doing it this way when I can just do it over my Chromebook? Okay. Just 1 second, guys. Sorry. Should have done this before I went live, but I'm going to go into kind of what's going on in my overall life, as well as some of the things that I've learned recently. Just 1 second, sorry guys. Likely be in future episode. Come by and say hi and take part. Just gonna. I'm not used to the Chromebook yet, but I'm just gonna put that on Facebook and then Twitter. I know I said I was taking a social media break, but this needs to be discussed because it will probably provide a lot of context for So I had the opportunity to go to a panel discussion the other day. It was the living in precarity and anxiety at King's. Just 1 second. Try and get the actual title because I can't remember it for the life of me. All right, people probably got notifications if they're subscribed to me. But I know the reminder. Oh, come on. Really? Well, that kind of sucks. Okay, it is my main. That's because I have a Gmail for my TB DSB stuff. Because apparently I needed it. But yeah, so I went to a panel discussion the other day. And as I'm sitting there listening, and it's pretty much my life on deck. God, the cold weather. Can't wait till summer, man. Then I'll be sweating my ass off instead of sweating my nose out. But no, as I was, listening, got cat hair all over my Chromebook keyboard. But one of the speakers, Mike Moffat, who I've followed on Twitter for many years and have admired from afar, I was finally able to meet him that day, so bucket list. But just make sure the volume's good. But yeah, so was able to do that. And he had mentioned part of the panel discussion was he mentioned OW and ODSP rates being a contributing factor to the housing crisis, etc. And could I not agree more with that? Because hello, that's been my life. But that prompted me to, because my partner the other night had mentioned it, because I was doing my taxes, and he was looking at his stub from OW for taxes, and the poverty line, because I screenshotted it. Hello, Melissa speaking. Hello, Melissa speaking. Anybody know that number? That was odd. Okay. But yeah, and I looked it up because I was like, okay, something's not right here. So I'm going to show it to you guys. Oh, good. It reverses it. So this is from 2022, though I'm sure pretty 2023 is not much better. But poverty line in Ontario is about $27,343. The deep income poverty threshold is determined to be $20,508. Ready to get a little bit angrier than you already are? Guess what a single person on Ontario Works brings in every year? Sure as hell isn't 25,000, and it sure as hell isn't 20,000. A single person on OW with no dependents brings in, you ready for this? $8,000 to $9,000. That's on Ontario Works. I'm going to change this to live chat. It says top chat, so I changed it to live chat. But yeah, so where do I go with that? Of course, it's ridiculous and it's completely disgusting. Sorry, I got to plug in my phone for a bit. I have this room for a bit yet. But yeah. Where do you go with that information? I take it a few different avenues because it's me. This is my life. With there not being such a thing as a rent cap anywhere, whether it be provincially or federally, that means that people that are on social assistance like Ontario Works are never going to get to the point where they can actually reasonably even be close to afford a room or an apartment. Because a lot of people have asked me, like, why are you and your partner, renting rooms together? Well, we don't really have much of a choice because the max for shelter for a single person is $390. So individually, we are bringing in about $400 each for rent, shelter, etc. And most of the rooms that usually go for that amount are usually the ones that are summer sublets for one, as well as super tiny rooms. But even then, some of them are actually pretty reasonably sized rooms. But then you get into the issue of, well, if two people are wanting to share a room together because necessity, because that's the only way they're going to be able to afford a room. So combine our two incomes and we get $800 for rent. Now, of course, we aren't common law or anything because we're not dependent on each other other than for emotional, because we have our own, like, we're responsible for ourselves and we just help each other out, like, emotionally mostly. But like 800 is like basically the starting point for a lot of places. It's not usually and usually that's before utilities. So, yeah. That's before utilities. So if you're two people trying to get a room for rent, 800 with utilities included is a godsend. And luckily, that's the kind of situation we're in presently. However, it's not going to last long. It's not permanent. One second. Yeah, no, I don't. I gotta show you guys this because this is hilarious. I know this is completely unrelated, but it's fucking hilarious. So I just got a notification from, I'm going to show you guys, a fake Rock the Park page on the official Rock the Park Facebook page. Because I'd entered to win, tickets to Neil Young because Alan Doyle, of course. But this is how desperate people are. Like, this is a scam Rock the Park account, obviously. But it's just, yeah. Spam. Submit. Block. Confirm. Okay. And I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one that's gotten that. But anyways, stopped. Anyways, so back to my topic that I was discussing. But if you're like two people on social assistance, of course you want to get a room together or a place together because that's the only way you're going to be able to afford it. But just how humbling and frustrating for me, more than anything, being somebody on social assistance, the fact that in a year, the base amount, like if you use max shelter, max shelter and max, basic needs allotment, you're only bringing in $8,000 a year. That is well below even the lowest income threshold for the poverty line, which is 20,000. So people want to talk about, what's contributing to the housing crisis? What's contributing to this? What's contributing to that? I can tell you from experience, it sure as hell isn't property taxes from the city. And I'm not even going to get into that because I will be here for hours. It's not municipalities. It's the fact that the province and federal government, provincial and federal governments do not have the proper social supports for everybody in place. They also don't have a rent cap in place, which but the fact that they're enabling a program, a social assistance program, and I'm pretty sure ODSP, Ontario Disability, is not anywhere, close to the poverty line either. But the fact that they're allowing these government-funded and taxpayer-funded programs to not allow people to function above or at the poverty line, but instead disgustingly below it, blows my mind. And it's disgusting. It's fucking disgusting. It's me tapping on the chair. But, yeah. And I kind of wanted to go into why I'm taking a social media break. First, I have a lot of schoolwork to do. I have a summative evaluation to do in both my classes, so I need to focus on that, and I just need to focus on school, because it's being precariously housed. You can't really focus on everything that you'd like to focus on. Like, I would love to be able to focus on city stuff and provincial stuff and federal stuff and all this stuff, but I can't, because I have to focus on us, have to focus on making sure we get by day to day, have to, make sure that, like, I got to be selfish. And anyone that knows me knows that that's the last thing I want to do, because I'm the least selfish person out there. But I need to be for the time being. And it sucks because I'm not even interacting with my friends very often anymore. And that's making our friendship suffer. Of course, people are understanding, and I love that, but like, it's causing a lot of issues. But most of the reason why I need to take a social media break, other than posting my episodes and going live once in a while on various socials, is because we are almost in a position where we need to start looking at other accommodations. And that's kind of a long story short, but ever since we left the toxic shelter environment, we've essentially been at the mercy of complete strangers, and we've taken pretty much the first thing that's come up, because as somebody who's looking for two people who have a pet, and I don't feel like surrendering my pet back to my friends again, because that's not fair. It's not fair to her that I'm in this position to begin with, but I'd rather have her with me than, But even then, even if we didn't have a pet, people aren't renting to couples, like even a room. Like, it angers me that not only is there not a rent cap on the amount people can charge for rent, but there's also not really much in the way of rights for people that are renting rooms. Because if we're sharing a kitchen and bathroom, we're essentially paid guests of people. And because of that, there's no real regulations or requirements of what people can and can't rent from, Like, sure, the Ontario Human Rights Code's a thing when it comes to housing, but there's no enforcement of it. Because most of these places that are, renting their places out, they could care less for, like, what, fines? What, they're not going to be able to, like, list their place for rent anymore? Cool, they'll find somebody a different way. Like, but it's really frustrating because things that we have really no control over, like, we can't separate because we wouldn't be able to afford $800 a month separately. We have to be together. Like, we have to do it together. And I have yet to see a place that has like 2 rooms that are each this price. Okay, so could you rent out 2 of those rooms to 2 of these people? No, because you're not students. No, because you're not working. No, like, I had been following up on a lead for like a week. Like, I am constantly checking Kijiji, checking Facebook, checking all these rental ad sites. And I had a promising one that would have allowed us to have our entire own space, not a room, but like an entire basement suite, pretty much, like a basement area, like, or just a bigger room. I had a few leads on the go. And I got really excited because they were willing to rent to 2 people with a cat. And it's hard not to get excited when you get that because it doesn't happen very often. And both of them fell through because something came up. And I felt so bad. I wasn't angry at the people that, something came up. I was more angry at myself. I felt like I had disappointed us, that I had let us down. Because finally we were getting somewhere. Because where we are is, like, it's got its pros and cons. Like, we have no issues. Like, people we stay with are nice to us. Like, they're lovely to us. Couldn't ask for better people towards us. But the dynamic of their family is triggering for us. That's all I'm going to say out of respect to them. But it's triggering for us. Not to mention that we're in a freaking transit desert. Like, I don't know anybody that knows London, okay? Anybody that depends on London Transit that knows London. We are close to, like, the closest major intersection to us is Southdale and White Oak Road, which is closest to Warncliffe and Southdale. So when you live out there and most of your supports are in the Northwest London area or Northeast London area, Northeast, not Northwest, because that's Hyde Park. That's Huron Heights. Like, we go to the airport to go to the London Amateur Radio Club once or twice a week. So that's considerable amount of time on transit, especially on Saturdays when the bus that usually goes to the airport doesn't run. Thanks, LTC. And when you are in a position where your body isn't in the greatest shape like ours is, and it flares up on the slightest hint, if you're walking from Huron and Clark after we get on the 10 and after we transfer to the 15, it makes that 45-minute walk to the London Amateur Radio Club and the airport exhausting. And then having to do that same walk back to catch the bus back. Like, you're having to plan 6 hours out of your day just to go anywhere. Like, that's the main reason we want. Like, that's why I'm like, we need like somewhere that's close to transit. And sure, I could take 12, walk down and catch the 12, or walk up and catch the 93, but like, none of them go to the northeast end. So doesn't really do much. The only thing that goes to the northeast end is the 10, and that takes upwards of an hour. So we're spending two and a half hours getting to somewhere and 2.5 hours coming back. Isn't that fun? Isn't it great? Like, when you don't live in an area surrounded by students, or you don't live near campus. Wouldn't it be great if we had transit that actually worked for everybody, not just students? I couldn't resist. But yeah, like, and it's really just so frustrating, and it's really discouraging, and it's really just like, I may look like I'm put together, but I'm not. Like, I'm not, because I don't know if we'll have our place until we get into housing, or if we'll have to move for some reason or another. Like, the family we're staying with could just move somewhere, and we really have no other option. But I internalize it a lot. It's something I've always done. I internalize it a lot because I like to take the maternal, like, I like to make sure everybody's okay, make sure everybody's fine, and I shoulder that burden when they're not. And I'm shouldering that burden a lot lately, and it's hard. And it gets to the point sometimes where we are almost in the same position we were in when we left the Sally, like mental health crisis mode. And sure, we could, be in and out of the hospital, and maybe then the city will actually take notice of us and, offer us some wraparound supports, or, try and get us into housing sooner. But we can't stay in hospitals. That, and getting to Vic from where we are is overwhelming enough by itself. But to be put on a bus that's usually packed in the midst of a mental health crisis, in which we're already overwhelmed, and we get easily overwhelmed by being on a super packed bus on the way to try and get help. And the last thing we want to do is like call ahead and be like, hey, send us a cab. Like, we're one of the people that doesn't doesn't want to take advantage of the system the way it's set up. We're one of the ones that usually are like pretty self-reliant and independent. But being in a housing position where we don't have stability really messes that up. And we don't have, of course we have our friends and stuff, but we don't have, we have limited supports due to federal and provincial funding nonsense. And because our circumstances don't meet the criteria for help from the city, we're pretty much SOL. I would say if anybody were to spend the entire day with us, they would see we're high acuity. We are high acuity needs because, it's so frustrating. It's so disheartening. And it's so painful and so difficult, and it's hard to explain. I'm going to try in this series to put into words how it is and how it feels, but I don't think my words could do what seeing it firsthand would. And fortunately, most of the people that will see this series and will, hear this are in a position where they will never have to be seeing it firsthand. And I can try and do as much of converting firsthand to secondhand so that you guys truly understand. But until you are in that position, you can never actually truly understand. It's like anything else in life, But yeah, it's getting serious. So yeah, I probably won't be on social media much. I'll interact once in a while, but I'm not going to be, as active as I usually am. Mostly because I'm just frustrated at the privilege that I see happening. And the lack of knowledge and the lack of wisdom and the lack of understanding that I see. People getting outraged because the police is getting an increase in their budget. Because the municipality is allowed to give, it's the municipality's responsibility to fund them appropriately. They're not funded by other things. And then to be outraged that, the library is not getting an increase in funding, the transit's not getting an increase in funding. Or, a program that helps hoarders is not getting the program. Those are all provincially funded. It's municipally, police service falls specifically to municipalities to fund. It's not a combined 3 government thing. It's a 1 government thing, whereas transit, library, social services, etc. is all 3 working in collaboration. And I can't believe I have to verbalize this. People don't understand how things work. Funding streams are different for different things. Sure, it's extreme that the police needed the amount that they asked for and got. I'm not going to disagree with that. What I am going to disagree with is the people that are that should be reallocated to social services and this program and that program. I'm going to say this once, and I'm glad this is live because it's going to be there. I am a victim of domestic violence, intimate partner violence, sexual assault, etc., who has gone through the victim services program at London Police Service. And of course, this was 3 years ago. And even back then, I saw when they were still being historically underfunded, I saw the things they wanted to do but couldn't because they were being underfunded by the municipality. They couldn't complain to the province or the federal because it was strictly municipal funding that underfunded them. And I'm sorry, but I will happily support victim services getting additional funding because why? Victim services is a social service. And the fact that they have been talking for months about starting an entire unit based around intimate partner violence, domestic violence, sexual assault, the fact that they've been talking for months about starting a designated unit for that, which I have a feeling, I'm not sure, this is my take, it may be an extension of the victim services program. I mean, it would make sense because they're probably going to interact a lot anyways. But I'm happy to see that. I'm happy to see the proper amount of funding going to that. That hasn't been there for over a decade because previous councils have not funded this police service the way they should have. And you know what? Be mad at me all you want. But the fact is that much like, and I like to use this analogy, imagine, like, take out London Police Service, okay? Take that amount and apply it to London Public Library LTC. If LTC were to say, we want to inflate our budget so we can have new facilities, new vehicles, new vehicles for our fleet, you know, things that we're going to need to improve our service and bring it up to the standard that it should be at. How many people would say, oh, that's an inflated budget. Oh, we can't do that. Oh, it's a need to have, especially if they were to say, hey, we need this all done in year one. I guarantee you, none of the people that were pissed off, actually, there probably would be, but I can guarantee none of the people that were pissed off about the police getting that budget would be pissed off if the LTC was getting that same budget. And they'd be getting it for the same reason. And what is that reason? Improving the service for the betterment of the entire community, long term. But people are pissed because the police are getting that. Whereas, oh, they're underfunding LTC, they're underfunding London Public Library. Let me tell you something, guys. Have you looked at the budget asks from both London Transit and London Public Library? They undercut themselves in their funding ask supremely. They asked for the bare minimum to keep status quo of their current system levels. They weren't bold enough and said, hey, you know what? Let's ask for double so that we can actually properly have an investment. They didn't ask for double. They didn't ask for the amount that the London Police Board did. It would be real interesting if all three were asking for the same thing. That would have been a real interesting budget process. But even then, municipalities are under different responsibilities when it comes to London Public Library and London Transit. They are a piece of the pie when it comes to funding. They are not the only person or only party or only body responsible for funding it. And municipally, we can fund it till the cows come home. But without matching provincial and federal funding from other levels, the investment would be lost. It would be a wash, guaranteed. So the fact that people are pissed off because the London Police Service is getting all this money, well, that's because the municipality is in a position to be able to do that because they are not in a position to be able to fund LTC the same way or LPL the same way. Again, I wish people would understand how these things work before spouting off at the mouth, because it's making them look foolish more than anything. And people that were like, oh, well, 74 people wrote letters. How many of those were copy and paste templates? How many many of you were around for the hubs conversation? That was mere months ago. You remember those PPMs? Were people that didn't have the first clue about lived experience or the first clue about what somebody that's accessing these hubs would actually need, were spouting off at the mouth without having having any kind of clue as to what they were talking about. And how many of the copy and paste template letters made it to council? Way more than 74. And it had the exact same impact, because guess what? You can have 74 people write letters, but if they all have the same letter, they're not going to be taken seriously individually, because it's going to be counted as one person. Like, I don't understand how people didn't grasp this concept, considering we just went through the same thing with the hubs. And many of these same people were many of the same ones that were outraged at people being NIMBY and not knowing what they're talking about when it came to the hubs. Now they're on the other side of the frickin' situation. Like, it's just ironic to watch how quick people's perceptions and priorities change. But no, like, municipally, London police are in the position where they are, by federal and provincial policy, municipality is the sole responsible party for funding them. So yeah, the city's probably going to give them a lot of money, because they don't have any like chance of going to the province or the feds and saying, hey, we need help. No, it's set up that way. And it's not the municipality's fault that it's set up that way. It's only the municipality's responsibility and role to make sure they keep to that mandate. And a bunch of these people thinking they have any place to dictate where the funding goes. No, we vote for who represents us. We don't vote for where our money goes. Of course, we have a say, because public participation meetings and emails to council, because, democracy. But at the end of the day, we're at the mercy of the municipality. Like, we don't have the power to dictate where the money goes. We can have a say. We can, try and lobby one way or the other. We can try and convince council to do one thing or another. But at the end of the day, it's their decision. But I'm glad people were blue in the face the other day, because thinking that they were going to change anything. I watched the PPM fully in the midst of doing homework. And yeah, there were a lot of young people that showed up, and a lot of those young people were kids and parents and child relatives of people that were anti-police from the get-go. And then people masking in gallery, which I don't have an issue with. I don't. So yeah, I'll agree that one of the councillors was out of line by talking about decorum. But the logic of people masking outside, that's where I kind of had an issue, because contrary to their belief, people were still able to identify most of the people that were masked, including myself. And guess what? Most of those people were not masked up because of COVID or because they're immunocompromised or out of respect for the community, because I've been on packed buses with those same people, not masked whatsoever. Any other gathering, public setting, no mask. So yeah, I'm sorry, but I can't agree with that everybody that was masked up was doing it for COVID. No, there was other reasons. Like thinking they would not be identifiable. They more than were. People have gotten used to seeing people with masks on, so as long as you know what their top of their face looks like, pretty much identify them. But it's like me. Most people still know it's me when I have a mask on, or even when I have my toque on, people still know it's me. Like, it's not rocket science, people. But yeah, it's just like watching that in real time has just been frustrating. But it really tells you why our society is in the position it is, because nobody bothers to like fact check themselves. Like everybody's the first to say, "Oh, fake news, fake news, fake news." Like I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and they were like, "Oh, well," and I had said to them, "I'm like, yeah, LTC and LPL are basically undercutting themselves." And I also mentioned the fact that while they believe they were underfunded, that the city actually gave them, at least when it comes to LTC, twice of what they asked for. And of course, the person was like, "Oh, well, they didn't give them the conventional service hours." No, but having investigated that budget left, right, and center, having been at London Transit meetings and city meetings when it comes to this for the past several months, there's one thing that people seem to forget. There is a way to calculate how much money goes to conventional service hours, right? So yeah, the city might not have given them that specifically, but they literally gave them enough so they could incorporate it themselves. Like basic money management 101. Like this, the city is giving them more than what they asked for, almost twice over, like twice more than their budget ask, and then another 75 million over 4 years. And and LTC is gonna turn around and tell people that they can't improve the conventional service with that additional money? Are you kidding? Like, are you idiots? Honestly, like you're still being given the amount you need for conventional service. You're just not giving it earmarked for that. And I think, again, this is the city testing London Transit on how serious they are about improving their service. Because their whole campaign was, "Oh, wait, there's no service improvements. There's without investment." Well, you got your investment. Now use it for those service improvements. How is that not concept worth grasping for people? And it's funny because they were given that amount before they started on this whole, "Oh, no service changes, no service improvements, blah, 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 blah." And then, and of course, when I shared this with the person I was talking to the other day, they're like, "Oh, well, that's not what the LTC and the media say." If you're depending solely on the media for your information, you're already fucking stupid. Because if you even took media studies at all in the past 20 years, you would know that the whole point of news media is to give you a taste of the actual story. Sure, they'll go in depth on coverage. Sure, but that's still not the entire story. That's up to you to figure out. That's up to you to look into. And the amount of fake news that's been in the media the past 4 or 5 years. The fact that people still depend on the media to get their information. Like, what? Oh, an LTC. I'm like, yeah, that's LTC's, that's their operating procedure. Oh, they're not giving us what we exactly want, even though they are. So we're going to spin it into, oh, they're underfunding us. And I will still say to this day, dick move, trying to like scare us into supporting you guys. Like the whole campaign of, "Oh, no service improvements, no service changes, more crowded buses." We're gonna get that anyways because y'all aren't gonna fucking y'all didn't ask for what you actually needed in order to bring the fucking service up to standard. And you guys are probably going to reallocate the money that should be going to service improvements to something else because it was, and then you'll use it wasn't earmarked for that, so we put it towards something else. That's exactly what's going to happen. And then the city's going to come back in a year and be like, You guys are fucked. I'm sorry, but it's true. Like, just because they're not giving you the earmarked conventional service hours funding, they're giving you more than enough funding to incorporate into conventional service hours. They're literally giving you the very hand that you're going to bite and it's going to cost you. They're giving you the rope to hang yourself with. Quite frankly, they're giving you the rope to hang yourself with. They want you to prove them wrong that, you guys are serious about service improvements. Well, take the money we've given you, put it towards service improvements, whether or not we've earmarked it. Like, you shouldn't need it specifically for that to put it towards that. That's like in our position right now. Sure, we take additional money out of our basic needs for rent, all of $10. But that also is a long-term investment because it gets us rent paid for the month, which improves our lives because we're not ending up homeless tomorrow because we didn't pay the proper amount of rent. Right? And yeah, it takes out like maybe a few things of groceries, but like we have other ways of. But is that to mean that if we were like given extra money by one of our friends that we wouldn't put it towards groceries? No. Even if they said, hey, here's some extra money just so you guys can, like, I've literally had people like, I've seen people give people money and say, hey, use it for whatever you like, use it for whatever. Use it for something nice. Take you guys out for like an anniversary. And we'll take that, or other people will take that, and we'll put it towards groceries. Like, it's not rocket science that if you're being given money and you've expressed that you need money, put it to where you said you need the money for. Like, if you're going to waste the additional spending that the city is giving you on other shit other than service improvements, they're going to bite your head off next year. Because you guys get annually reviewed, even though it's only a 4-year budget process. You guys get annual reviews. And I can guarantee you, if you do not get the service improvements that you promised us. Oh, by the way, what was the point of raising fares? If you guys are going to like put it towards service improvements, what are you putting the fare increase towards? Which made me laugh when they're like, oh, no service improvements. Like, wasn't that just the justification you used to put up the fares? But anyways, neither here nor there. But like in a year, people are going to be writing to city council being like, yeah, they didn't improve service worth of shit. And I guarantee you, if the city were to audit you at that point, they would see you took that money that you strongly said you needed for service improvements and put it elsewhere, other than towards any kind of service improvement. They're going to bite you. But of course, I said this to this person the other day, and they're like, oh, well. I'm like, it's basic economics, people. Like, sure, you're not getting the money you specifically asked for the specific reason, but you're giving the money, you're being given the money and then some that you specifically asked for. Maybe you should be taking that additional money and putting it towards what you specifically didn't get that you asked for. Huh? Foreign concept, it seems. But again, I would really... And the whole LTC thing just frustrates me because they've consistently undercut themselves when they ask for funding from the city. Like, of course, they have provincial and federal, which they could go after, but clearly that's not working. So, okay, why don't we just try asking more from municipal to compensate for that? And it's not like the city wouldn't be willing to fund you more than what you ask for. Like, they've proven. But yeah, so. But yeah, me and Jay are in the process of, leaning over these wooden chairs. I'm just going to see where Jay's at. But you know, this is a reality until we get into housing. Like constantly having to rent rooms from people, and being on Ontario Works or even ODSP. Like we're not even considered people by our own governments because they're not willing to support us. Which is why I am really, really, really one of the people that is pushing for a universal basic income. But yeah. Guessing Jay fell asleep. Yeah, probably. Keep me. All right, but well, that's why I'm taking a social media break because I'm tired of being smarter than most of the people that should be smarter than me but aren't. And I hate to say it that way, but it's so true. Like, sure, be mad at the city because London Police Service got a huge budget. But that's not actually the city's fault. It's their responsibility. Sure, but it's not their fault that is a thing. That is a provincial federal thing that's where your frustration should be aimed at. That's where you should be having your rallies and your protests and shit like that. Like, my God. Same when it comes to like, oh, it's not funding London Transit. It's not. Well, yeah, because they're not the only ones funding it. There's two other parties. There's two other governing bodies. So maybe you should be like channeling this anger and this frustration and taking these rallies to Toronto or Ottawa or MP Terrence's office just 3 blocks from City Hall. Like, what? I don't get this. Like, you're shooting the messenger essentially. And it's just like, why? Why are you shooting the messenger? Oh, because you don't have the energy and the effort worth putting into to properly inform yourselves and properly aim your frustration at the proper parties. Spoiler alert, city ain't the proper party. And the police aren't even the proper party either. Like, oh, defund the police. That's not the police's thing. That's a federal and provincial thing. And that's the one thing that always entertains me. Like, it's all like these rallies for DTP are always happening here. They're not happening in Ottawa. They're not happening in Toronto. They're not happening. Well, of course, they're happening in Toronto because Toronto. But like, it's not a province-wide rally. It's a Toronto rally. Ottawa should be the main focus of people that are so outraged. Because start the feds, work your way down. But of course, nobody has the energy to devote to that. They have the energy to devote to standing outside City Hall, banging drums. Like, that's going to make a difference. It's only going to get local news coverage. It's not going to get national news coverage. Going to Ottawa with a large rally or protest, that would get national attention. That would also get the federal government's attention. Your efforts here are not going to get provincial or federal attention other than our area MPs and MPPs. Both of which are, well, let's see, we got 3 orange NDPs. We got 3 orange MPPs. None of them are conservative. I think the closest one is south of us, like St. Thomas, Elgin. Federally, 2 2 Liberals and 1 NDP. No Conservatives whatsoever. But yet the Conservative government at both provincial and federal wants to make things worse for these very services and things. So maybe people should be taking their anger to them, not to the city that are literally the last. Like, they're the messenger. They're having to do what they are mandated to do by higher levels and what they're restricted from doing based on policies from higher levels. So before people keep going on blaming the city and like, don't be targeting individual city councilors because they didn't vote the way you wanted them to. I have a feeling that most of the ones that voted in favor of these budget cuts or these budget allocations, etc., were doing so just to show they support that. Not that they would necessarily want the city council to be able to do something about it because they probably know they can't. So, yeah, like, it's complicated. It's very complicated. But it seems like they've moved on to different causes now because, like, the hubs, people went from being angry about the hubs to suddenly being angry about something else. Some of them just disappeared off the face of the earth altogether. But some of them have now changed their focus. Okay. Is that focus any more informed? Probably not, because, educating oneself is so hard. But they're the first to tell everybody else to educate themselves. Okay. How much more education would you like me to have? I don't have a PhD. I wish I could. But that doesn't mean I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Nor would it mean I know what I'm talking about. Which, yeah. And it's funny that one of the main, opponents of the police budget was a former cop themselves. Like, that's a little sus. So either you're blatantly ignorant of how things work or you're bitter. And some of these people rallying behind people that really don't have a dog in the fight to begin with. Like, people trying to speak up for those that are unhoused. Like, I'll never speak for anybody that's unhoused. I'll speak for myself. That's it. Of course, I'll share common experiences, but I'm never going to say, oh, I represent everybody. No. I represent the experiences that I share, not everybody's. That's the difference between me and these advocates. And this goes back all the way to the ones that were staging the hunger strike. Oh, we're doing this on behalf of all unhoused individuals. No, you're only doing it on behalf of the ones you know. And you're doing it based on the fact that you're bitter because you've been against the city for years. And they didn't even do anything to make many changes either. See, that's funny. Looking back, they haven't really done much to improve the unhoused population thing, have they? No. Quite the opposite, actually. They have yet to have the level of programs that the city had before. And the fact is the city is actually bringing back some of those programs because they're seeing that these advocates didn't know the first fucking thing about it. Like, not many people are off the street since this whole hunger strike thing. Like, I saw that. I stayed at the Sally for over a year. Not one of those people. Like, yeah, we are housed, but not stably, which is the same for a lot of their friends. But yeah, it's weird how people forget that. Strange how that works, huh? Yeah, this whole like hunger strike was for nothing. Because look, things are no better because, again, you guys aimed your anger at the city because the city has nothing to do with it. Provincial and federal need to be where the rallies are. Like, have a hunger strike at Parliament Hill, have a hunger strike at the legislature in Toronto. Not at the frickin', oh, the city's not doing what we want. Well, there's limitations on that, which you guys have seen since then. Because, they had to set up an entire foundation so people could anonymously donate. Why? Because they couldn't do it themselves. Why? Because the province and feds have it set that way. These people have degrees. Like, some of them have PhDs, some of them have degrees, and some of them have diplomas in like social service. I'm like, how are you? Like, how? And some of them are political scientists. Hello. Oh God. But yeah, so it might get to a point where me and my partner have to kind of trade between going to the crisis center for 3 days at a time. But even that would mean the other one's struggling even worse because they'd be by themselves. So yeah, we're in a no-win situation right now. And as much as the city could be doing more, it's not on them. I'm not angry at them. I never will be, and I will make that clear every time. I'll be critical of their programs. I'll be critical of their decisions. But I'm not going to turn it into a smear campaign against, councillors that vote against it. When it came to the hubs, yes, I campaigned hard against one councillor that clearly didn't have the first clue what she was talking about at all. And that same councillor refused to actually acknowledge lived experience being shared with her. In fact, one of these videos, I should actually go back and bring that up because I still have that email where I shared my lived experience vulnerably. And her response was less than honoring of that lived experience. Quite the opposite. So when people say, oh, this counselor is terrible, this counselor is terrible, there's a few bad actors. Well, I wouldn't even call them bad actors. There's just some that need better education. But I'm also not going to be the, pitchforks and calling for them to resign. Because that's not how it works. Again, people... But, yeah, so... That's why I'm taking a social media break. And I just want to say hats off to council for bearing the brunt of the past few months and doing what needed to be done, even if, I certainly don't agree that everything that I wanted to be funded was funded. But I'm not going to turn around and be like, oh, that's the city's fault. No, because I actually, unlike most people, I actually know how things work. Sure, it sucks the city wasn't able to fund it, but it wasn't the city's fault they weren't able to fund it as much as people would have liked. They have limitations on what they can fund when it comes to things that are shared responsibilities between the municipality and the federal and provincial. When it comes to something that's only theirs, they have all the freedom in the world to fund it as much as they want or as little as they want, which is what people forget. Up until recently, our police force was one of the most underfunded in the entire province. Heck, the entire country. Of course, people were happy about that because defund the police. But these are the same people that were complaining about response times, about not having victim services, not having, enough supports for victims of crime, and these same people that are complaining about the police service getting more money, are the same ones that are like, oh, the police took 4 hours to show up. Well, there's a reason for that, because they're not being funded properly. But now that they are being funded properly, you'll probably see a drastic change. And then people trying to use the stats from other cities and countries. You really thought the city council was going to look at that and be like, huh? When our own local stats disprove that? Yeah. Like, people, if you're going to talk, have your facts straight, know how things work, and then have an informed perspective, rather than just talking out of your ass because you're pissed off or bitter or don't want to be paying more for taxes, et cetera, et cetera. Like, Jesus Christ, it's going to happen. Property taxes are going to fluctuate. It's a fact of life. They're going to go up at times. They're going to go down at times. They're going to be frozen at times. But guess what? You got 2 things you can do about it. You can either deal with it, or you can sell your house and move. Go to another city where the property taxes are even higher. They may have, and that's the thing. A lot of municipalities got little tiny increases this year. But if you look at their overall property tax, they're already higher than ours, even with the increase that we got. So, again, context matters, people. But, yeah, so taking a social media break. I'll be posting episodes every so often. I'm swamped with school right now, other than doing this. So I will record them when I can. I also have to come to a place like this to record them, because I can't really record them at home, because I don't want to have, issues. And yeah, so maybe I'll film one at the club station one of these days. That'd be kind of neat. It's kind of my happy place. I like to not have frustration there. That's why I go there. But hey, maybe if I'll film an episode and just be like, hey, this is my happy place, But yeah, so it's been an hour and 15 minutes, so I should probably get going. I don't think Jay's awake yet. I think he probably fell asleep. Unless that's him on Discord. I'm still at... Oh, CMHC ends first-time homebuyer incentive. Wonder how many people are going to be outraged at that. Oh, Kijiji. Would up to $5,000 help? What if next month's rent was $0? Would up to $5,000 help? Enter the Win Your Rent event now. That's a Kijiji notification. Legit. I love it. But yeah, I'm pretty much done at the library here. I was doing some homework at Fanshawe, and then came down here and did some homework and figured I'd chat with you guys for a bit. But yeah, probably going to head home after this because, yeah, It's a lot. Having to travel to different places just to get some quiet and some, recharge. And I think that'll be a thing even when we're housed, but like we'll have a little bit more control over what kind of influences we have in our place. So, whereas now we don't really, because we're not in our own place, we're in somebody else's. So, but yeah. And thank you everybody for the feedback on the episode so far, on episode 1. Appreciate the feedback. I will try and keep the episodes to 30 minutes each, which may mean some get part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5, part 6. I would hope it wouldn't get up to like part 4 or 5, but knowing how I tangent, it may just. But yeah, so thank you for the feedback. I haven't even filmed episode 2 yet because I've just been like, I've had mental health days the past 2 days because not having leads fall through when you're used to being rejected, and having people be willing to rent to you and then have it fall through kind of sucks and really kind of discourages you and throws your mental health for a loop. So should probably drink some water because that's probably why I'm coughing right now, because my throat is probably dry. Not helped by the fact that getting on the bus and having to breathe in chemical trails from people's colognes and perfumes closes up my airway. There's nothing I can do about it because, yeah, I don't have the money to be able to. I mean, puffer probably wouldn't do much. Like it wouldn't really open the airways, especially when it's like continuous. Unless I'm gonna have a asthma, like a puffer mask to my face at all times. But yeah, so love y'all.